all managers are feeling that now. It's not just the pressure of the project getting canceled or something. It's like literally everyone's job's at risk. Instead of waiting to the day and we all get laid off and have to scramble. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Lab. I'm Henry Kirk, joined with Jonathan Aronson. And I don't even know what number episode this is, Jonathan. I think I've lost track, but
I think it's
we're doing
5.
We keep
5?
now. Is it 5? I don't know. We're still doing it, and we're having a lot of fun. So today's topic, we're gonna dive into essentially, it's like, how do you keep your team and keep going in times of adversity and uncertainty? So in my personal experience, was laid off, trying to start a new business. It's hard to keep going every day. You have ups and downs. I'm working with my other partners to try to keep, get the business off the ground and keep us all motivated so we can continue to create a new path for ourselves. And I think that I was just talking with some other former colleagues at Google yesterday, and how things are really uncertain. There's been some layoffs announced at Amazon, at Meta, that has people at Google concerned. And so it's like, how do you lead people and keep them motivated and working hard when there's all this uncertainty? And I think, Jonathan, if you want to share, we were just talking about your own situation a little bit before.
Yeah. So I'm a coach, as you all know, and I do leadership training as well. And one of the companies, some of the companies I'm a 1099er, right? So I'm an independent contractor and I work with them. And one of the coaching companies I've been working with for quite a number of years has really boomed. They classify themselves as a startup, and the pandemic was great for them. There was a lot of companies out there that wanted to support their employees from working remotely at home. And there was a very high-tech concentration in the clients that they got, high-tech, tech companies. And, what happens is when you see the tech companies are going through all their layoffs right now and downsizing, it's affecting the supportive companies, like the coaching company I've been doing work with. And what's the fallout? Not as much business coming through the door, and that trickles straight down to how much business I'm getting. So literally, my business has dropped off by 75% with this company. 75%, which is significant. And I could see it coming, and I've done everything I could to try to, slow it down. But I have clients dropping off and I don't have new ones coming in. So, I at first got, really uncertain, how am I going to pay my bills? And on top of that, we have to pay taxes in a few weeks. So, and I don't get all my taxes taken out of my paycheck. So it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I think, it's a normal reaction, right? Henry, I mean, how do you feel? I mean, with Google, they ripped the Band-Aid. They sent an email, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is like, we're just kind of watching the trend. Nothing's really specific has been talked about. They came out with a little something, but not really. They don't know,
I mean,
how did you feel?
Yeah. I can't even. I don't think I've had a lot of time to feel much, to be honest. Since I've been laid off, I've been trying to find the next thing. And, like we were just talking earlier today, is like, I'm pretty exhausted from the amount of time and emotional energy I've had to put into everything that's been going on. So it's like, a question I would have for you is like, how do you, like, what are the strategies that you use to kind of keep it going? And like, you have to be a very positive, you know, towards your clients when you're working with them. So how do you, like, what are the strategies you use to keep it going and keep a smile on your face to help them? Because they're leaning on
Well,
you.
being positive, yes. Being real is more important, right? I have to be empathetic. Come on, I'm feeling the same thing, right? It's like, how am I going to feed my family? Where's my next paycheck going to come from? How long is this going to last? All that kind of stuff goes through your mind, right? Um, and I think, at first it created a lot of anxiety. And I think that's normal. That uncertainty is going to create that anxiety. But you said something just now. You said you didn't have a lot of time to think about it.
Yeah.
Why was that?
Well, because I knew that that would slow me down if I felt sorry for myself, or I tried to, like, I joke that, my wife has been the one that's been upset for me this whole time. She's the one that has kind of been the emotional one through this. And so then on the flip side, I also have to be the strong one, because the moment I freak out is when everything goes crazy. But I just, I have, my job is to get support my family and get myself back on my feet. And so I've been driving towards that. But what I find is happening is, like, the amount of energy needed to keep things going in this uncertainty is very, very challenging. So it's like, I'm working with other partners to try to build this business, and they all have good days and bad days. And yeah, we talked about it in an earlier episode where I had a moment where I, made a stupid comment and it caused some unnecessary tension. But it's
Mhm.
also just like, how how can I keep them motivated and part of the crew, and not say, I just can't do this anymore, I'm gonna go? Because like, look, you and I are now independently employed. We are not leaning on big employers to necessarily pay our bills. We provide, we're our own businesses, right? And so the easy way sometimes, I think, is to just go and get a job somewhere, because there's stability. You have that weekly
Mhm.
paycheck and whatnot, and then you take that risk to build your own business. And so I kind of think that, like, the pressure that I'm feeling to kind of keep things going is a result of, yeah, I've decided to embark on this journey to build a business, so that way I don't have to rely on people in the future. But it is very hard to get things off the ground. And as you're seeing, you've been a coach for on your own for, really, really long time, and you have to deal with these ups and downs, right? But the
That's
so yeah.
business. When you have your own business, that, you know, goes kind of along with it. I
Yeah.
mean, I've had a business through 9/11. I had a business through the 2008 downturn of the economy. I had a business through the pandemic. So, you know, some resilience is being, uh, definitely built up. And I've worked through all of them, right? I'm still here, and I'm on this great podcast with you, Henry. Um, and you brought up a good, interesting point right there. There's added pressure, not just about losing the job, but then your spouse, who is now worried and, you know, wants to be, I think in most cases, they want to be supportive, your partners, but they're worried and they have need somebody to talk to, and you're it. And so it's like it could come from another form of pressure. So the uncertainty comes from the unknown about the future, right? Unknown about the future. I don't know what's going to happen. How long is this going to go on for? Um, how am I going to get a job? And I'm sure some of the thoughts are, all these tech companies are laying off. I'm a tech guy. How am I going to get a job in the tech world if they're all laying off? On the other hand, I heard from an engineer yesterday I was coaching that there are job opportunities out there in the tech world. Um, Competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's worried about that. So all this stuff is coming through in uncertainty. You said you didn't have time to think about it because you're working hard. I mentioned it in an earlier podcast, being in action, right? So focusing on what you can do the here and now. You don't have any control over the future, but how do you lead through that, right? If you're leading a team and the team is like freaking out, going, "Am I going to have a job?" As a matter of fact, I coached some folks yesterday about that. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I keep getting all my other, fellow teammates coming to me, complaining, concerned, and these are, not all of them are leaders. These are just other people on the team, and they're freaking out about it because of that uncertainty.
Mhm. I
How
had
do you help?
yeah, I was talking with someone the other day, and they had said that prior to the first round of Google layoffs, they had talked to their manager and said, "Are we safe?" And he said, "Of course we are." And they said, "Well, clearly we were all laid off. That group was laid off." And I
Yep.
think it's kind of interesting. So, if you're as a leader, you're supposed to be the one that kind of keeps helps keep everyone calm and together and a unit. Are you lying to them if you say everything's going to be okay and then it doesn't work out? Like, should you be real with them and say, "I don't know,"
Yeah.
but then that causes a lot of emotion and uncertainty as in itself, right?
Yep. Yep. And that's great because you brought that up because that's what a lot of companies do. They're like, kind of like fluffing. Well, we haven't really had layoffs. We just let underperformers go. And somebody's on a team and go, this guy performed great. He met all his numbers. How can you say that? And as soon as you're inauthentic, as soon as the company message seems inauthentic and not open, people honestly want to know the truth. Okay? Once they know the truth, they can at least process it. But if they think you're covering it up, you lose something. You lose that trust. And once you lose that trust, you're on a downward slope. People are already starting to go, hey, I don't trust you anymore, right? Either as a company or as a leader. I'm going to go find somebody I can trust because I'm not going to live through this, right? So keeping trust high is really important. Don't treat people like they don't know what's going on. Start with empathy, right? Hey, I could even say I feel the same way you do as a leader. You're establishing a connection. It's okay to say that. It's okay to say I get where you're coming from. At times I feel that way, even in my role, right? Because now you have that trust out, you got that connection going, but then helping them focus on what's going on today, not about the future, because you don't have any control. Again, going back to the things you have control over. The why in back of why things are going on are very helpful to people in a team. Asking them questions, what do you need from me as your leader to feel a little more, I don't know, stable or comfortable within the role that I can give you. And they might just say, probably going to say, just as you know information, can you please tell me? Yes, absolutely. Okay. But then also reminding them they're still getting a paycheck. They still have tasks that they are required to focus on to do. And you are still there to hold them accountable.
Hmm.
Okay.
So what do you?
So don't discount that part.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what do you do if you're in this situation where you're as a manager you're uneasy to cause emotion? So it's like one thing to be a manager and have to have that difficult conversation because
Yep.
there's some reason that you need to do it. But what about your words when you go and say everything's going to be okay versus hey, I'm going to be real with you all and this is what the situation is and we're going to have to work through it. Like how do you push yourself to have those difficult conversations that will result in emotion across the board and then bring it down? Is it just um, what are the ways that you kind of get build up a as the manager build up that courage and b is it I mean I can see where it breaches the trust but I would think it's like actually very healthy for a team to be able to have that sort of openness right where the leader is not you know just telling them what they need to hear. Tell them what they want to hear versus what they need to hear.
Well, the leader's job is to offer them support, right? And also help them stay focused on the task at hand. Okay. So the support comes through about having this difficult conversation with them. You mentioned the word courage. Leadership does take courage. It does. It's a certain amount of courage. Using curiosity, asking open-ended questions, getting people to express how they're feeling, what they're feeling, acknowledging it, and then saying, "Well, what do we know? To be true right now. We're getting paid. We have a paycheck. We don't know about tomorrow, but right now we know we do. What can we do in order to make sure, or at least, I don't know, leverage our team so they see value with keeping us? I mean, we have no control over their decision at the end of the day. So why not focus on, well, let me show you how valuable we are by delivering on what we're saying we're going to deliver on. And, at least from that point of view, they're not going to have a negative underperformance type of thought about our team or team members that, hey, you're an underperformer. Guess what? You're gone. Right? But say, hey, that team's really contributing great. Again, you don't have any control over. If the executives want to lay off you, you're going, and there's nothing you could do. But honestly, the day you were hired, you could have had that happen too, right? Day you're hired, I think I may have mentioned earlier, my wife got a job offer, and the same day it got rescinded.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
imagine that. She
Yeah.
asked a follow-up question after she accepted the offer about working remotely because her parents were elderly and they were far away, and she didn't want to use up all her vacation time, went to go see them, and as soon as she asked the question, they rescinded the offer,
Yeah.
which she
That's messed up.
dodged a bullet, quite frankly, going to work for this company. But um, so as the leader, you have to listen first. You got to let them listen, and don't snow them. Don't go in and try to go, hey, everything's going to be great. Hey, but point out the good things about the job. Like I would point out for Google, it's Google. They have some stability. They have a lot of business still going on, and it's not a small startup, which once it's done, right? So point out the positives, obviously, but don't be unrealistic as a
Yeah.
leader in what you're doing. Be authentic. People will appreciate that, um, but remind them what the task at hand is. I would
Yeah.
say, and then the other part is dealing with talking to your spouse as well. How do you deal with that, Henry?
Well, I don't. I actually had a coach for the longest time because I realized that my venting and talking to my wife about some difficulties that I was having at work was she was getting concerned. Like I realized that sometimes you need like someone to vent to, and maybe this is actually a good thing too because if you're a manager and you have to be real with people,
Yes.
you're gonna have to have someone to lean on to help you
Mm-hmm.
be strong enough to be able to do that, because
Yep.
there were so many times early on in my career where I would go to my wife and I would just vent, and I do this to my dad too, and if he's listening he'll probably remember this, where I would vent to him about something that was going on and he literally thought I was either going to get fired, quit my job, or completely mess up my career, because there were things that I just couldn't handle because I was either immature in my career or I was trying to grow as a leader and I couldn't figure things out. And then of course when I get a coach, that everything just kind of like made sense because I had someone that had the skills to be able to help me like work through this. It's one thing to have a mentor, right? Like my dad's been in business for decades and he has a lot of experience that he can share with me and I'll then apply it to my day job. But he hasn't really worked too much in the corporate world, and I didn't really have any mentor that was strong enough in the corporate world because like I'm entrepreneurial and I'm trying to survive the corporate world at the time when I was at Google. And all the mentors I had were either entrepreneurial and they're like, you should leave Google and go do something else, or they were like super corporate where they couldn't understand the challenges that I was having trying to navigate things. So it was very interesting. So once I got a coach, like when we were working together, things I think started to make more sense, and I had a better sounding board where I was more calm and collected when I would talk to like my wife or my parents or anything like that. And then I realized that they were less worried about my career. Of course, I did get laid off in the end of the day, so like their worst fears came true. But I didn't. They noticed a big change in me where I didn't have these like conversations where I was like, I don't understand why this is happening. This makes no sense, or you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So yes, venting to your spouse, I think it's part of having a spouse or a partner. But on the other hand, is it helping or hindering? Is it just because you just got to unload on somebody? Um, and that's where coaches come in, right? Because I mean, I asked you a bunch of questions, probably like, how is this? How do you want it to be? Or, what are you really after as far as when you vent to your wife? And, what other, how do you want her to feel? Think about the other person as well. And I think you made a good point. Maybe talk to somebody who you respect and that either can mentor or help you coach, or just getting it off your chest could be helpful. The problem that you see in the workplace is, um, somebody on your team vents to somebody else on your team, who vents to somebody else. Now you have this really negative kind of environment going on. And there's a great video that is done by a coach, Fred Kaufman, called Victim Player. All right. And I encourage the audience members to go take a look at that. And and what it really is about is there are things that go on and you can victimize yourself. All right. And I always coach people, say, hey, feel it. That's great. Notice it. It sucks, that you're feeling this way. But then what are you going to do about it? Let's move on. Let's not just stay here. And he talks about how you have so many options open to you to move forward through it. So, um, why not take the options? Why stay in the venting? But bad news, people love bad news.
Yeah.
They just love talking about bad news. So, you as a leader, really is to try to flip that inside out, right? Take the bad news, say, okay, yeah, we had, I don't know, how many people got laid off at Google? 12,000 or
12,000.
something like
Mm-hmm.
that? Right. 12,000 got laid off. People still at Google should say, well, we weren't one of them. Could it happen again? Absolutely. Do we have any control over that? No. So what do we have control over? Show them how indispensable we are while we're here, right? You have that. If you did get laid off, anything I can do about it? No. Oh, then what can I do about it now that I'm laid off? Well, I can get into a program to go, create a program for myself to go find another job. I can go back to school, get some education. So employers, I'm working on employees love that when that you're not just sitting at home, eating bonbons and watching Gilligan's Island. You're out there trying to improve your job skills. Um, or community work, honestly, is a big thing these days for companies going, oh, wow, that's great that you're doing that. Um, so I'd say focus on doing something. Don't just wallow in where you've been, and look for people for support. It's important. It's important you don't feel alone. Your spouse or your partner to one degree, but maybe somebody outside, um, a mentor or coach. I mean, I think coaches are great because they really kind of are that supportive feature. And by the way, a lot of coaches have sliding scales. So if it's a thing that you're worried about how much it costs, talk to them. They might be able to help you out regarding that as well.
Yeah. Or you can just
Um,
do a podcast with your coach and get free coaching all the time.
yeah, well, you still haven't gotten my bill for the podcast, but that's
One
another
day.
thing.
One day.
One day.
You know, you make a really good point where it's, you know, there were days when I would come home or leave my meetings where I'd feel emotionally drained because as a leader, I would have to absorb all of the, like you said, like the negativity or problems that were going on in the team. And then it was my job to, like, help calm everyone and make sure that they were, well supported. And so it was a lot. And I think now in these times of this uncertainty with the layoffs and tech kind of shrinking a little bit, so to speak, all managers are feeling that now. It's not just the pressure of the project getting canceled or something. It's like literally everyone's job's at risk. So I think it's really critical in these kinds of times where the manager creates that openness so everyone can, talk about these things, but also the manager can get the help they need so that way they feel supported. So I think that's really key. And yeah, I think it's the one other thing that I think you bring up that's I didn't think about before, Jonathan, which is okay. So you're worried about being laid off. Well, then take some action to help yourself, help your team, and maybe it's okay. Well, you want to show that your team is valuable and you're going to work hard and complete a project on time. But it also could be is maybe you're updating a resume, maybe you're doing a group session with your team and say, okay, well, hey, you know what? There is a chance we're going to be laid off, but why not, instead of waiting to the day and we all get laid off and have to scramble, let's do a group session and help each other with our resumes, or let's go and take like a group class, or try to take some maybe different engineering classes or leadership classes or something, so that way if something does happen, you'll at least be a little bit more prepared. And I think that could calm people because it is uncertainty, right? And it's that but then when you dive into uncertainty, you have to take certain actions. Like I said, I've been on trying to like build my resume and apply to jobs and then build a business. But if you take little steps to break down that uncertainty, so if you did get laid off, you at least have your resume done, or you did get laid off, you at least have a new skill that can make yourself more marketable. That's actually a really good point, and I think folks should consider that.
Yeah, something came to mind when you were saying that, Henry. Taking action to make yourself stand out from the crowd, right? How is your team going to show um, they're a valuable team to stay? How are you going to show your how valuable you are to stay, right? I love using the phrase successful people do those things that unsuccessful people are not willing or don't do, you know? So get into that action, right? Tell people. You might have to voice some of what you're doing to let people know because they don't know, but say, hey, I'm taking this course, I'm learning this, I'm doing that, and trying to feed it up the ladder, so to speak, so people know that you're a man, you're still taking a positive forward action to benefit the company, benefit yourself, become more valuable. um, and the same thing if you're out of a job, you got two people going into an interview, both are equally qualified, but one of them has gone back to school or has done community service and really has contributed and grown during this time between jobs. you know, who do you think they're going to pick? Equal skills. So that's not the thing. They're going to go, wow, this guy is a go getter. He's really taking a very, he hasn't wasted his time during this time. And I just want to point out because mental health is a topic these days that people talk about. Be kind to yourself too. Don't put all the, you know, working. If you're feeling the pressure, go talk to somebody. If you're really getting high anxiety, go seek out a professional, I would say, or at least talk to a trusted advisor. Um, Take care of yourself first, all right? But the idea is not to feed the beast, but getting out of that and say, hey, I notice I'm feeling this way. I'm down. I got a right to feel down. But now let me focus on something else that will be valuable to people as I go forward, be valuable to myself, and get some support on doing that too.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. So we need to start wrapping it up here.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts on this? We've talked about a lot of good stuff today.
Oh, just as a leader, understand navigating times of uncertainty, um, can be challenging. Recognize it for it, but you as a leader, they're looking to you for leadership. They're looking for you for a certain amount of stability. They're looking at you as a trusted person in the team. So show up that way. Take on that responsibility. Lead with empathy, but really help people focus on what's important, the here and now, and let's make a positive impact for the future. And the
Yeah.
future will unfold as it will.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really important that the leader shows strength, but also, like you said, empathy. Be a real person with your team. and I think the advice of, you know, the leader should certainly seek out someone to talk to themselves, because they're
Hmm.
especially in these times, we're all going to be taking in a lot. So I think that's very important. A mentor, a trusted advisor, a coach, whatever it is. And I can speak from my experience that it's been very helpful. And then the last thing that I think that really stood out in today's chat today was, being real with your team, but then also helping your team take that next step. So find something that the team can do to better the team as a whole, whether it be to, and maybe finishing that project that you've been working on is not the right thing. Maybe it's something to just give everyone an edge, like a new skill, group coaching, a group like a learning session or something like that as a group. And that might actually help, keep everyone together, especially if it's a shared experience. So I think that that's two good takeaways that I would suggest too as well. That's great.
Great. And
All
we're
right.
always here. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'll be more than happy to respond to that. And also, if there's any topics particularly that you would like to kind of for us to cover, bring them up, because we are certainly open to ideas and want to really reach our audience members, our listeners, and make this as impactful a podcast as we can for them.
Yeah, this is great. All right, you've been listening to the Leadership Lab podcast. Henry Kirk and Jonathan Aronson. And if you gotten this far, thank you. And please like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so that way you can get notified of the latest podcast every Monday morning on your way or
And
walk
tell
to
your
work.
friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. Tell your
Tell
friends.
your friends.